How's it going, guys? It's Nathan from Nathan's DIY Garage, and today we're going to be pulling the intake off this BMW E46. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to start off by taking the disa valve off, and these will be star bits. I don't remember what size exactly. Let's see here. I think it's probably this T30. I remember right? No, T40. Yep, we'll go ahead and use our battery impact here. We'll zip that out. And the owner on this top one actually has a 10mm in it. So we'll go ahead and pull this out. If your car still has the airbox on it, doesn't have a cold air intake, it's going to make it easier just to go and pull the airbox out. We're going to unplug the disa, take the bolt out of the top, and at that point in time it's free. You can just wiggle it and pull it out like that. And we'll go ahead and check his disa valve real quick. We'll flip the flap closed. Where's it at? There's a hole in the bottom. You put your finger over it, push down, and I don't know, it's kind of bad. It should hold it. It's kind of good and kind of bad. It's not too bad yet. No need for replacement. Let's go ahead and try to get this back out of the way. We're going to start off next by going and pulling off these little caps that go over the valve cover here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove this top cover up here. Gently pop the caps off of it. And that's going to reveal two 10mm nuts. This up here. I'm sorry, bolts. Pull that off. That slides back like that, and that gets you in there. And at that point in time, that reveals our air tubes. It reveals our fuel injector harness. We'll have to take, I don't know if we'll have to take that off or not. We're probably going to have to at least unplug the fuel injectors to get the rail out of the way. We're going to go back down here at this point. I'll make sure you're in the screen here. And we're going to go ahead and remove this whole boot. So we're going to start off by unplugging the mass airflow. We're going to unplug the vacuum line out of here without breaking it all off. You can see he's missing the vacuum line on the lower. It was just hanging open, so we'll have to hunt that down when we got this open. Let's see here. So I think at this point in time, we should be able to get to the clamps. Depends on how you put it back together. The IAC boot clamp we can get to real easy. I'll take our screwdriver. We'll just kind of push that off, the rubber boot off of the ICV. Like that. When you reinstall these lower clamps, always make sure that you reinstall them so you can actually get to them again. I don't know if you did on this one or not. And it looks like, or not. Maybe up to the front of here like this. I really can't see. Okay, so yeah, you had the clamp there from the front. I like to do them from the back, so you get on here like this and get the clamp off. So the boot is loose. Let me see, without stabbing a hole, you go behind the clamp and just try to push it off like that. Once you have it off like that, then you have the whole thing. And you want to make sure and inspect this thing for cracks. Inspect for cracks also around the ICV boot. This one looks like it's new or been replaced recently. Go and set that off up here at top, and that reveals everything down here. So now you can see the throttle body. Now you can see the ICV and everything like that. Now this car is going to have a CCV delete. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in here, we're going to go ahead and pull off the throttle body. I'm going to pull off the ICV. And once we do that, it's going to expose the mounting hardware that mounts the intake to the block. And once that stuff's off, we could probably just go ahead and do it now. I think we'll just do it now. We'll go ahead and remove the oil dipstick. We're just going to cut the rubber tube because we're going to delete that anyway, and we're going to block that off. And to remove the dipstick, there was a 13mm on the bottom here, and then cut the rubber tube, and there should be a couple wiring harnesses tied to it, and then it should be free. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get our 13mm bolt out on the bottom here. And we'll go ahead and break it loose. You could probably get the intake out without taking this off, but it's going to take you literally triple as long. And also we're going to replace the oil ring, or at least inspect it on the dipstick itself where it goes into the oil pan. Now awkward spot, my impact won't get down in there. The universal don't let it flex enough. Heater valve and all that stuff's kind of in the way. There we go. Once you get a finger tight, then you can just go ahead and take it on out. And we're going to take a razor knife, and we're just going to slice that rubber tube. Pull it out real quick. I don't know how much he's got unhooked from this or not. And there's our missing vacuum line right there. Alright. Let's see if I can just unplug it for right now. Barely. I pulled the dipstick out, stripping a little bit of oil, and the rubber oil ring on this one is either not on there or is stuck in the oil pan. Let's see. Yeah, it's right here. And I did change this oil. It's still kind of watery looking, kind of milky looking. Set our dipstick off to the side. I'm gonna get a microfiber to wipe this oil ring off here. This is a real common spot for these cars to leak. I try to keep these on hand, but it's hard to keep everything on hand. It looks like he's replaced it. You want to look for any kind of areas here where there's any kind of gouges, or if it's hard at all, if it's not pliable. This one actually is pliable. Doesn't seem to have any problems. So the dipstick's out. We're going to go and remove this wiring harness right here. There should be 2 10s on it. Well, that's alright. We'll go and plug the ICV. Just like that. And that should loosen up this whole harness. Right here is our missing vacuum line, or a missing vacuum line. Looks a little small. We'll have to investigate that. We'll put him down out of the way for right now. And then there should be 4 10s that hold the throttle body on, 1 in each corner of it. I'm going to grab a ratchet. We'll go ahead and pull that apart. Actually, before we pull that apart, let's go ahead and take our, it's actually smaller than 240, and he's got them kind of stripped out. So let's see. There's actually a T27. We'll go ahead and pull this ICV out and get it out of the way. If you get the throttle body out without doing that, it makes it a lot easier if you remove the ICV first. So we'll have to clean it anyway. Okay, so we got the 2 bolts out, and the owner had these 2 cross-threaded in there. They're not the right bolts for it. Hopefully the threads are still okay for the inserts. We just took those 2 bolts out. We pulled down the ICV, and it's open. It was stuck a little bit right from the get-go. We'll go and clean it again for him. For right now, we'll sit it back here out of the way. We're going to go ahead and pull off the throttle body. On the throttle body, there's 4 bolts. Let me get the battery for the impact real quick. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull the throttle body. I don't know if I get to all 4 bolts of this or not. Probably not. Got our little tray here to put our bolts in. And this thing only flexes so much, the range of motion, but it's an impact swivel, so it could take a lot of hits with the impact, even the big impact, and won't break it. But you sacrifice a little bit of range of motion with it. And then we're going to go and unplug the throttle body. And that should let us get to the bottom bolts here. We're gonna have to go to our ratchet because we're out of range with our impact. It's really not a bad job taking this intake off in the M54. On the E46, it's a lot more pain in the butt because you just don't have the room. There is another trick here I'm going to show you in a few minutes to get some more room, but fortunately for us, we're changing the starter, we're changing the coolant pipe, one of the coolant pipes under this, and CCV delete. Everything else we probably do without taking the intake off, but the starter you can. On an E39 with this engine, you get right to the starter. It has a different airbox system, and just a lot easier to deal with in general. Take our extension off. Try to get down in here and get our last bolt out of the throttle body. You just got to feel around with your finger. And just wanted to note that the throttle bodies on the M52tu, so the E46, E39, Z3s that are 99 and 2000, use a different throttle body. It's not drive-by-wire. When you get to the M54, which is 2001 and up, it is drive-by-wire. The intake, whoops, the intake is different. The throttle body is different. Let's go and pull the throttle body out, just like that, and we'll go ahead and clean up. This is some carb cleaner. There's really not a whole lot to service on these. Usually if you're getting down to where that doesn't work, it needs a replacement anyway. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and pull. Hopefully you can see this. Let me see, make sure this thing's focused good. Hard to see in the sun. This whole guard comes out, and when you're putting the intake back on, that's going to make it easier to deal with that. There's a half turn fastener right here. It goes right there, and there's one back there. And I think that's all on these. And you slip the hoses up. There's a hose and a wire. And you should be able to slip the whole piece out. And that'll save you a hell of a lot of time putting it back in, because you're going to have trouble getting all the vacuum lines and stuff on the back of the intake. Now, to actually remove the intake, there's one bolt in the bottom going to the block. The owner already has that off. Usually that's a 16 or 18 millimeter, I can't remember which. You don't have to have that in. And now at this point, we're going to go and pull the vacuum equalizer tube out and pull the injectors out. Okay, so we're going to go and pull off the equalizer tube. Now, this is still connected to the CCV, so let's go ahead and... Oh, no! That's a different one, different screw in there. We'll put that aside, that fits that. You gotta be so careful with these Torx fit screws to get the right one. So now we're going down to a T25 on this one. So it doesn't have quite all the right screws in it, but we'll work through it. Pull that out, front little bin. This one up here is actually missing. Okay, now I'm going to grab a pry bar, and we're going to work this equalizer bar out without snapping it. Okay, so We just got a simple pry bar, and we're gonna ever so gently work this thing out without snapping anything. You never pry very hard to get underneath here and just work it up out of there. And before you reinstall these, you definitely clean up the little seals around them and WD-40 them. There we go. And our hose going down. Usually it just snap off so easy. Since you're in a catch can, we're gonna grab our razor knife and we're just gonna slice it if I can. Okay. Unplug our manifold temperature sensor, and here's the equalizer bar. And you can see there's little, maybe you can see little rubber seals, oil rings around these. I'll take a rag and wipe those off and WD-40 before we put them back in. Also wipe out the holes down in here, and it should snap back in real easy. You take the palm of your hand, just click it back down. So we're gonna probably go ahead and block this off, not right now, before we put it back together, and we'll go ahead and get some rubber tubing. We'll put a block off and clamp it up here. On the M52tu cars, doesn't have the second port. You can put a bolt in here. I find it kind of tends to want to snap off. Depends on how soft it is. We'll see how it works out and what we do for it. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do next. We're gonna get a extendable magnet like so, and make sure you guys are see what's going on here. It's kind of odd with the sun the way it is. You can see that or not. Kind of a weird glare. Anyway, we have a extendable magnet, and we're going to use our 1/4" drive. You can use whatever you want, I guess. Battery impact with a 6" extension and 11mm socket. It don't have to be deep well. What we're going to do first of all, we're going to unplug our vandal solenoid to get the wire out of the way. And we're going to go in here with our extendable magnet. We're going to take our 11mm, and we're going to take these nuts off, and we're going to grab them with a magnet so they don't fall down there. And when you take them off, what you're going to do here, let me do something a little different. I don't know. Let me find something to cover up that sunlight for you guys. Okay, that's tremendously better. I got a piece of cardboard and put it back there. That way the sun wasn't glaring on you guys. Probably a little bit hard to see before. We'll go down and do this. It shouldn't take me just a couple minutes. And we'll zip all these nuts off of here by holding the magnet next to it. When you pull the socket off, you ensure it doesn't fall down and you lose it. It's not that big of a deal for me. I got so many extra nuts and bolts, but if you guys are doing this by yourself and you don't have any extra nuts and bolts, you sure as hell don't want to be losing stuff. And a couple of these have a solid bottom in it where they can't fall down. Let's go back there and pick them out with that guy. We're down to, we got a double on this one. So there's a stud stacked on top of the other one. This hole and this hole. You can see the intake come loose real easy since the bolt wasn't in the bottom. And you pretty much got to have all these nuts on here. If you miss one or you leave one out, you're going to have an air leak. So let's see if you put the back one in. Yeah, you actually did. We might have to get something a little different here. Get our impact swivel. So we're getting close to the car. Get back here. Oops. It's kind of a tight spot on these 3 series. I'll have to get a different angle at it. I was hoping to go and pull the the last bolt out and then take the rail off, but we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to go and pull the wiring harness off the fuel injectors. And to do that, what we're going to do is take a straight screwdriver, and it has little clips on it. Let's see if we'll focus here. And we're just going to pop these off to the side. And relieve the tension on them. Kind of hard to do with one hand. Just like that. It's not focused whatsoever. Come on. There, you can see it. So we just popped it down. We didn't take them off. You can take them off if you want, but I like doing this. That way, as soon as you pull this whole rail off, you can just snap them right back on. And when you go to push it back down on there, when you push it on the injectors, they just lock right in. So we're going to go ahead and do this for all 6 injectors. We're going to push the clips to the side, and then we'll just pop it off. Alright guys, so here we are. And you don't have to unclip both sides of those if you don't want to. You can just do one side, and make sure you get back in there with a small pry bar screwdriver, get against the fuel rail, and just, you can pop them off one at a time. You shouldn't have to use much force at all. It should come real easy. If you're having trouble getting them off, go ahead and flip both little bells over. So at this point in time, we have the injector harness is loose. And what we're going to do, we have all the bolts out except for the back one. We're going to go see if we can't get the back one out. If we can't get the back one out, we might take the 410s out of the fuel rail and just flip the whole thing out. Hopefully we can leave the fuel rail on, because in the back there's just a squeeze fitting and unhooks it. So let's go ahead and get a hold of that and that nut on the back and see what we can figure out here. Okay, let the helicopter go over. We can't get it out. Well, let's go ahead and take these 4 bolts out. And you have, this stuff is open, so be careful not to drop anything on those little ports. So be very cautious every time you take a bolt out. Not to drop it down in the engine. I did drop that one, but it wasn't in the engine. It's right there. Keep your magnet handy. We've got one more to take out. So balance up there. We'll go ahead and pull it out like that. And then at this point in time, we'll take our pry bar and we're going to gently work out the injectors. And he just had all these out, so they're not going to come out difficult at all. Alright, so got that out. We don't want to lean on this anymore since all the bolts are out except for the last one. Take a chance on snapping something. We're going to get down here on the back side, and there's a fitting, if I can get it. Barely get my hand in there. I'm gonna have to wait till we get the intake out. Like I said, on a 5 Series, this is all so easy to do. So let's just kind of set the rack, the injectors out a little bit. Let's get back in there with our 11mm, which at this point in time should be a straight shot. Still gonna have to have her universal. And I tell everybody on these 3 Series, the head gasket jobs are definitely not very easy to do. Well, they're easy, but it's a lot more stress because the limit around the amount of room by the firewall. Set that up there so it don't fall. Keep track of all our tools here so we don't lose anything. That up there. And now our intake's free. Make sure the camera's still rolling. So we're going to go ahead and grab it, and we're still going to have some vacuum lines that unhook from the bottom of it. And we'll go ahead and unhook our CCV line up here at the valve cover, and we're just going to slip it back. And we're going to be careful not to lose these rubber pieces and these torque limiters out of here. If we don't turn it upside down, we shouldn't lose that. And then we're going to try to undo our fuel injector rail. Like that. Then our ejectors will just lift out like that. and keep the tube up. We'll dump it over here in the grass. If you have M52tu, you're going to have 2 fuel lines. Those have a return. Sit there on a little table. At that point in time, careful not to drop anything down the engine. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and snap all of our clips back in so one of those don't fall down the ports in the cylinder head. Okay. That back out of the way, we're going to lift this out. We're going to have to unplug these vacuum lines in the bottom of here. So get her up on the end. Let's go ahead and get over here. I can see we're going to pull this guy here off the bottom. We're going to get our pry bar. We're going to fish this guy. Now this has got the older style, so it's going to be easier just to do the clamp probably. And if you guys do this, it's not going to have a clamp like this. It's going to have one of the permanent clamps you have to cut off with a pair of dikes, and then you end up going back on with one of these. So there's that. Make sure it's nice and loose, and we use a screwdriver just to work that clamp off. Try to get in right at the neck. Careful not to break any of this stuff. Okay, there's that. We'll pull the clamp totally off, put it in our bolt bin. Alright, so that's all free. I think we're just down to our crank sensor wire, which you should be able to fish that out. And he didn't have none of the stuff on the back hooked up, so we'll deal with all that. That's no problem. Let's see if I get down. Crank sensor harness. Whoop, tried to knock anything off. Go ahead and unplug that. So we get a clear hose. Grab a hold of this guy, and we should be free, and we are. See, he forgot to hook this stuff here up that goes to the secondary air valve. So we'll go and get that worked out for him. Alright guys, so we're going to pull the pipe off. This thing had the coolant leak. As you can see, the coolant pipe is actually broken off the side of the head, and that's where it's leaking. This is a real common problem on these. This coolant pipe, and also this one that goes in the back of the timing chain case, if you can see it or not. It must be too dark for it to focus. Anyway, it goes back in the timing chain case like that, and it goes down here and hooks in. Anytime you take those off, well, not anytime, if they're the original ones, been there for a long time, you need to replace both those hard pipes. If you don't, you're going to have problems. And worst case, you're going to be driving down the highway or the interstate in the middle of nowhere, and that's going to blow out, and you're going to be stranded. So he went and sent me a new one. I'm going to go ahead and put that on. We're going to go ahead and get the intake back on, get the catch cam back on, and we need to switch that starter real quick. And he's going to pick this thing up tomorrow. I can see that his valve cover, he's missing all the metal washers on it. It only has the rubber. That doesn't work, so I have to dig some of those out. And yeah, so it's going to be kind of a rough situation. I don't have any choice at this point in time to put the camera down and just knock it out and get it done. But that's all for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped a lot of you guys out. And if you guys take your intake off, it's not a terribly hard job. But that's it. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.